the methods that this group came up with. This class, these are PhD students in their first or second year, and this is a research methods course. So they have been learning a lot about how to gather data, and focus groups are one of the data methods that they reviewed. This is their first time doing a focus group, though, so I ask you to be gentle with them. And then I'm going to step out of the way and let them do everything else.
But she'll intervene if we're on fire.
Yeah, if something happens, I'll step up, but otherwise, so I'm going to let them.
Okay, so I'm Jennifer Blanks. I emailed everyone to coordinate the focus group. And so just to run over the consent forms, some of you have already signed it. We have 2 copies for everyone, but you keep a copy for yourself and then we'll take a copy for the record. And so it's just you agreeing to, or confirming that you agree to participate in the focus group today between 1 and 3 o'clock p.m. However, you're not obligated to stay during the entire time. Feel free to leave if you have other obligations. And as Dr. Meyer said, the purpose of the focus group is to understand the impact Habitat for Humanity has had in Fayette County thus far and how they can move forward in the future. And so right now I'm going to ask if everyone's okay with being audio recorded. If not, we won't do it if there's one person who objects. But if everyone's okay with it, are we good to audio record?
Will this be held against us in any way, shape,
no,
or
it will not
be? Just watch what you say.
You can use colorful language. We'll be the only people to hear it.
He's fighting extradition.
And so we'll delete the audio recordings after we're done transcribing and analyzing the data that we need to collect from this conversation. So we're just recording it for the sake of this focus group. And so you're encouraged to speak freely. It's not structured to be as formal. This should be a fluid conversation, sharing ideas and opinions about Habitat for Humanity and then the other questions that we have for you guys. We ask that everyone takes a turn speaking. Just be mindful of other people's opinions and courteous. And so, focus group is not a debate. It's not a group therapy session, a conflict resolution, an opportunity to collaborate, or any other promotional opportunity. So,
All right. What is the overall objective? I never have figured that one out.
So the overall objective is for you as a stakeholder or a participant in Habitat for Humanity to tell us your experience, what are your likes and dislikes of the program, and we have a list of other questions too, but it's just to help us create a report that'll be a tool that Habitat for Humanity will use to help make any improvements in the future, and it's just a formal report of all the ideas and opinions thus far. Okay. And so again, you're not obligated to stay the entire time of the focus group. So be comfortable. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or Dr. Meyer. And then we'll introduce ourselves. So again, I'm Jennifer, and I'll have my other classmates introduce themselves. And we'll get started.
So I will start first. My name is Jian Bian, and I'm also a part of this class. I will be the note taker for this focus group. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace. I'm the first year PhD student. I'm here to observe the whole focus group process. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Johan. I'm the first year PhD as well. So I was about to record the whole thing. You also aware of there's 2 groups right here, but right now it's one, so I'm gonna go back up. I'm still taking notes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yoon Kim. I'm also a PhD student in this class, and my role is for this focus group is recording and checking the.
My name is Melina. I'm a second year PhD student, and I'm a co-moderator with Jennifer.
I'm Malini. I'm also a second year PhD student, and I'm the other note taker. Nice to meet you all.
A lot of notes.
Yeah, so y'all should get everything. We have so many note takers. Okay, so we'll get started, and we'll open the floor and go around the circle, and you all introduce yourselves. Just tell us your name, your role, what is your relationship to Habitat for Humanity, and how long have you been attached to the program? So we can start whichever way.
I'll start if you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna mix it up. I'll start and we'll go this way. My name is Leonard Leffler. I am president of Fayette County Habitat, and I've been on the board now for about 6 years. And I kind of work with the construction end of it as well as the administrative end of things.
My name is Ed Collins. My wife and I started with Habitat in 2007, and we raised the first major money for the first house in 2007. We started construction on the first house in 2007. I took the role as project manager, and with a group of people from the community, we built the first house in 90 days. But that was working 6 or 7 days a week because we didn't know any better. I've been president, past president of Habitat, and vice president, secretary, and treasurer. I think I've had every role there is to have in it. And I learned a lot of lessons between 2007 and now, so I'd be glad to share those when we get into it.
Richard Copeland. I've been with Habitat since 2007 on the construction committee doing volunteer construction. I was also on the board for a period of time, and then on one house I was construction manager. And but since then I've just been volunteering on the rest of the houses.
I'm Bill Koenig, been with Habitat since 2007. I'm a worker bee, doing construction.
Bill Bishop, I'm not even a worker bee, I would say, citizen at large.
I'm Patrick Cavallaro. I have served with Habitat for Humanity since 2007, serving 6 years primarily as secretary, but then cycled off and then was asked to cycle back on. And I'm currently vice president / secretary, but I see myself staying on for another 4 or 5 years before I have to cycle off again.
I'm Kenny Couch. I'm a board member, and I've been with Habitat for about 6 or 7 months now.
And I'm Janet Murby, and I'm mayor of LaGrange, and we worked with Habitat in 2007 on the first house. We're a community that, as a whole, really welcomes Habitat, and we try as best as we can to meet the needs and the requests that Habitat presents to the city. I think we, in the first fundraising thing, the EDC contributed $35,000, and we waive permit fees, and our city manager works closely with the board members in facilitating their needs. We have done variances on lots to accommodate. We believe that Habitat is what we want in our community, and we welcome them and look forward to this new project that they're working on.
Great. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves, and again, we want to thank you for agreeing to participate in our focus group. So it sounds like everybody's been here since the start of Habitat for Humanity in Fayette County. So that's good. So then you can help with the next question, which, in your opinion, how does Habitat for Humanity benefit Fayette County? And we can answer in any way. We can just go ahead and have the conversation.
Can you say that, repeat that one more time?
In your opinion, how does Habitat for Humanity benefit Fayette County?
Mayor, why don't you go first?
Well, I think the way we look at it is that Habitat financially helps the city because we have taxpayers going on the rolls. Mm-hmm. We have construction that materials that are purchased locally. We have a lot of investing going on in the economy of the city. Also, I think when people have and feel that they have ownership, mm-hmm. they tend to be volunteers in our community. They spend their money in our community, and I can't say enough about how beneficial, I think, Habitat is for our community.
I think from a personal perspective, that Habitat takes people from a situation and elevates them to where they have that vested interest in a piece of property, but now they have a vested interest in life more so than they did before, just as renters. I think it's tremendously beneficial. I also think that all of us that work on the projects get more out of it than we put in.
There's a sense of fellowship.
Right.
Yes, there is. And I would add to that that there's also a sense of community. It's welcoming people, enabling working people to obtain homes, I think makes them feel more connected to the community. And Janet, more willing to volunteer as they go on. I think especially the children who would either come from a home where the home was leased or rented from maybe a governmental agency to a home where the parents are the homeowner. I think it helps cement their relationship with the community probably for the rest of their lives in a way that's different than if you're just renters.
I might add to that I think one of the largest benefits for all of us, that's the people in the community and the people that own the homes, are the children. In many cases, and I don't have the statistics on it, the homeowners in this program are able to get their kids into college for the first time. And we're able to see and witness a change in the direction of their lives for the future, to whereas living in apartments someplace in East Austin may never get those kids to college and have a better life. But in a small community, having their own home, watching their parents go to work, watching their parents make the payments on time, teaches children some valuable assets. And we have direct evidence that several of the children of the homeowners are either in college or preparing for college. I call that the ultimate success of the program.
Yes.
I'd like to kind of touch on a couple of things that we've kind of danced around a little bit and reaffirm. What I've seen through Habitat is the impact of more than just one generation. You're impacting at least two generations. Not only are you impacting these two generations in a household, but those that are in that circle of that household as well. And when I see kids running around and they say, "This is my home," basically what that says psychologically is that they've set roots. They've got a place they can feel secure and sleep good at night and not be as stressed out, so that gives them a chance to do more with their studies. And it's seen around also by those that they associate with. And then taking that, of course, the parents, they're more at ease, and it gives them a chance to be able to, with that security there, or safety net, if you want to call it that, to be able to try for other things, to try to improve their lives in other areas. That's from that perspective. Now, there's one other perspective that has really come home to me over the last couple of years, and that's the community. Because what I've been able to see, and one of the reasons why I like living here in LaGrange is that we have so many people that are caring and giving up their time and their energy, because it's a community that comes together that works on these Habitat homes. It's not just one or two individuals. We're talking about different church groups coming together, different other organizations coming together. Some are helping to raise funds, some are helping with the building, and it's just bringing the community together to work on projects because they're wanting to improve their community. And the recipients of this also see this. The children learn this lesson as well. And then, of course, their inner circle here again sees this happening too. So I'm hoping and praying that as things are moving forward, that these lessons learned translate into a better community, irregardless of where these children may end up. Hopefully they'll remember, hey, I had the community come together to help build my home. Let me see what I can do to help others. And then, of course, that means a better society as a whole.
I just want to, when I listen to all this, there's one thing I always remember. When they have the house blessing, and we go in there, and you see the look and the expression on that homeowner and the kids, it makes it all worthwhile. Because there's something about having a home. You know, they're just, I don't know how to emphasize that enough, but the self-esteem that they have and the look on their faces, it just makes it all worthwhile. And then I've seen, as you said, you talked about the kids and all that, I've seen how they, you know, talk to them later and so on. They do well in school. You know, there's something about the commitment of the parents and so on when they volunteer to do this, to get in there involved and get this home and so on. But again, it's that self-satisfaction and so on that they've accomplished this, and it goes to their kids and then for the rest of their lives, I would think.
I agree with that. I think a lot of our parents, of course, they're all hard workers, they're all employed, they're all doing what they should be doing to have a home. It's just no one's ever taken a chance on them. And anytime you're sitting there paying rent's kind of an endless game. You're just paying enough so that you could start over your lease again. There's no payoff at the end of rent. And I think this is the first time in a lot of these kids' lives they're seeing a payoff to hard work.
Right.
Because their parents don't have the kind of job that really lends itself to promotion and getting a payoff that way. It's just, you know, and there's unfortunately you always have to have those kind of drudgery roles and jobs in our world. But I think these kids for the first time are saying, hey, if I do work at something, there is a payoff. It's not, I'm just getting to the next start date, and I think that probably does transfer to a lot of different aspects of their lives, like schoolwork and all that.
Another aspect is if we drove you around Fayette County, not just LaGrange, but also over into Schulenburg, and we took you down the street, you'd be able to pick out, without us telling you, you could pick out the Habitat home because it stands out for being better taken care of than the rest of the area.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
Every one of them.
They're neat as a pin, aren't they? Yes, they are. Yes.
You know, the comment I think that Ed, you made about that this is my home. I think it's the difference between the permanence of it in the lives of the children, that this is my home, this isn't where I live. And I think one of the things that is most impactful is if for the first time they're seeing their parents have control over their lives. When you're renting property, you can't make that room your room because there are certain restrictions on what you can do. And when the family owns the home, there is that intrinsic value that they get from knowing that that there is permanence in their lives, and like you said, impacts their schoolwork, their relationships, and the knowledge of knowing that a community came together to help me. I think when you, and it's sad that our society's price of home ownership has so far outreached the salaries that are available to a lot of our citizens. And there are more and more population that can't afford a home, especially in LaGrange, because homes in LaGrange are very high in comparison to other towns our size. And the value that they get knowing that the community, that they've lost that isolation. I'm out here and everybody else has a home and I'm having to fight to make the monthly bills and whatever. When that release and they know they're building equity and that kind of thing, it colors everything in their lives and the lives of their children and generations to come. So
That's why I think Hope Hill is so important.
Yes.
Not to get into politics.
No,
Yeah.
but
No,
that,
it is
that's
true.
the same type of
Yeah,
thing.
it's a step for every family that can go in there, absolutely.
And again, you know, if you look at the kid, I keep coming back to the family and the kids. I remember walking in, the kids come in there and they start going, there's my room.
Mhm.
There's mine, and so on. Oh, and look and they start talking where I can do this, and there's something about that. Again, this is permanence. You know what I mean? It's that. Anyway, I just.
It'll make you start to cry when you really
Yes, it
start to
does.
think about it. If anybody or any of you have never been to a home blessing, it is the most inspirational, spiritual experience that you could ever have. I don't miss one unless I have to, because it is just amazing, the looks on the families' faces, and you can see the emotion coming to the surface on everybody that contributed, and there's so many people that contribute to every build. Totally amazing.
And you all
Sorry.
have touched on this, but we should make it clear that the county has a real housing problem. And we saw, I mean, it became clear for everybody during the flood, but I've walked a bunch of houses and before the election and the houses that are there, I mean, we have some crappy houses housing a lot of people.
They don't sugarcoat it.
And I mean, people living in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from
It's-
Kentucky and spent time in Eastern Kentucky, and there are some similar areas. And I was thinking the same thing as Bill, is that we would walk and pass out stuff, and when we hit a Habitat house, it was just different. It was-
But you know, as you drive around, have you not noticed just recently that since the flood and the building of the Habitat houses and the building of the recovery team's houses, that it's generated this spark, and people, and I know a lot of them are maybe flood survivors that have bought some of these more inexpensive homes, but things all over town are getting prettier. It's kind of like when your neighbor gets landscaping,
Yes.
and you look at your yard and you go, "Oh Lordy, I need to do something." But it's catching the fever. We've got some work being done on homes that have been here for years.
Have y'all, as a group, had an opportunity to go visit an actual Habitat house being constructed?
Not as a group. I have individually.
The reason I say that is because the mayor touched on something as far as the blessing, but it's not only the blessing, it's in the construction, and that future homeowner spending was it 300 hours?
300, yeah.
300 plus hours working on their home. They have a vested interest, and you get to see that, and you get to see them coming out and their kids coming out and working on it. And just as you said, the kids coming out even before the house is finished and going, that's going to be my room.
We may have slipped off your
Yes.
program. But let me tell you what's important. I think for your editing and your final documents that you're going to put these notes in, you should get a copy of the rules and regulations for qualifying
Oh, yes.
for a
We're already
Habitat
asking for it.
house. Because it's not just walking in and saying, "Oh, I love my new house." It's a lot to it. You've got an early qualifier, there's got a background checks, there's so much involved. So when these people pass those qualifications and they spend 6 months working on their own home, it is so different than someone just handing you the keys.
Right.
Because you've got a vested interest, and I think it would be really good for your program to have those rules and regs.
There's something that we in Habitat like to say, at least for our organization, and that's that we are a hand up, not a hand out.
I think too, that involvement on the job site, they build relationships with people in this community they never would have met before, and they're long-lasting relationships.
Right.
You know,
Very much so.
you start running into people in the grocery store.
In the grocery store,
they're
I
friends,
see them
you know.
there, and they'll come an aisle away to see my
Yeah.
wife mostly because she's just that touchy-feely type of person, and they love her. so.
Absolutely.
It's like knowing Richard. It's like knowing, I know you from Habitat.
Yeah.
Now I know the hosting church from Habitat. Right?
That's
So
right.
I can go out there and have breakfast with y'all or dinner with y'all.
The
And you're like,
pancake, annual
I'm kind of
pancake.
around my people, kind of. Because there's a lot of members at your church that show up.
Well, and then Richard and I, we started working together on the Habitat years ago, but then you started coming to the ramp project. And then we got the ramp project guys working with Habitat.
Right.
Volunteers that weren't working there before.
Yes.
Right.
So, community.
Yeah, well, my sociologist wife describes it as thatching.
Oh,
That there
yes.
are
Oh, yeah.
various, you have connections in multiple ways at a church, at the ramp, and at the grocery,
Yeah.
and
You start running into people more and more.
so those connections bring people together.
I like that. I like the idea of a thatched roof.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have a that.
So it sounds like there's a big social impact, an economic impact too, but the social impact
Yes, it's a social impact.
is the biggest impact from what I'm taking away right now.
And there's a financial component to it.
Yeah.
Don't discount the house.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna discount
yeah.
it, but that social impact and just having that sense of community and taking pride in your community and being proud that your
Yeah.
house was built or repaired from
Right.
your community makes it significant and special.
And I think it does help shed a light on the countywide housing issue because people start having face-first proof that it's not laziness that's causing a housing issue. These are people with full-time jobs,
Oh, yeah.
busting their butts. You know, it's starting to be your kids that can't afford a house, and that's really makes people notice that
Yes.
it's an actual housing issue. There's not another issue
That
that's causing it.
Housing unattainability, is
Yeah.
that a word?
Mhm.
That
Sounds
housing
good.
unattainability is creeping up the economic strata, not creeping down. So it's really, I'm glad that we're able to actually do something about it. It is exciting work.
So
Think about the areas where we built.
You have to find a way to get it.
Think about where the areas that we built, the lots that have become available are areas that were blighted. They've been sitting there for years that haven't been developed. And we've come in and now that's improved not only that particular lot, but it goes back to now there's other new development that's coming around the same thing. I have a good friend that's involved in Habitat in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And they operate differently than we do. Our volunteers are pretty much the same people all of the time, and periodically we get groups that come in and work with us. They operate on it from a different standpoint. They have a small nucleus, but they go out and bring in military units and work to build their houses. And they're building 2-story houses.
Challenge.
This guy's my age and he's talking about being up on the roof. I'm going,
So while we're on the subject of this housing issue in Fayette County, what improvements do you think Habitat for Humanity can make to improve this housing issue, or what improvements do you think Habitat for Humanity can have in itself to perform better in the future?
I think we ought to start with identifying the problem. The problem is that we live in a small community that was designed and laid out 100 years ago, where all the streets are narrow, the lots are narrow. There's a lot of construction issues related to that because back in the day, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the houses that were being built were 400 or 500 square feet. So when you got a 6,000 square foot lot, you had lots and lots of room. Those things have changed. You have bigger houses, taller houses, more utility needs, and so on and so on and so on. Then you add to that the impact of not enough property, and the property that is vacant, this is another subject, is sometimes not available to us because it's tied up in a litigation or it's tied up with inheritance issues and all kinds of things that make it not marketable. So the lots will sit there for 40
Generations.
or 50 years, And even if you go through all the legal process, it takes so long, it's so expensive, and the attorneys don't want to get involved in it because there's nothing in it for them. No offense against attorneys, but they're not going to spend their time on that. So Habitat is inheriting a problem where we have vacant lots in the town, but they're not available to us. The other one is the ones that are available have been driven up in price because there's more buyers than there are lots available, and that's obvious that that's supply-demand issue. Well, to pay $40,000 for a small lot puts such a burden on Habitat to get it kicked off that the price of the house then starts to become unattainable for most of the Habitat qualified people. So it's a struggle for us to find affordable lots in town that we can build on at a reasonable price. That's the real issue. So go on with your.
Yeah, what was the
What was
question?
the question again? I just want to get the
Okay,
basics.
so yeah, to recap, the question is, what improvements do you think Habitat for Humanity can have, if any, and then why do you suggest those improvements?
I think we are, with our Habitat affiliate, we're looking to, I think for lack of a better word, up our game. You know, it's one thing to manage 1 or 2 houses and 1 or 2 mortgages. Now we're going to very soon be managing 8 mortgages. You know, we hold all those mortgages. So that's all the mortgage payments, all the tracking of the escrow, all of those things, and we've done that with volunteer labor. And we probably need to bring, and we're looking at part of our planning, bring some professionalism to that and bring in maybe a paid staff member. That's kind of our immediate challenge. I think our second challenge in serving the community is finding lots, like you mentioned. We would love to go to any community in the county, but we don't know where those lots are. We tend to do better right here in LaGrange because this is kind of where we're focused. Recently, money has kind of come into LaGrange because of the flooding. That's made some, maybe money's available to us. And so I think that right now, the road to improvement for us is being more professional. And I want you to understand, and this is very important for our community members to understand, we go by Habitat International standards and regulations. We're not making this up as we go along. There's a provision where we can hire people, or there's a provision where we don't. But whatever we do, we have to go through auditing, regulation, and review. And that's very important for the community, I think, to understand that Habitat for Humanity, our local affiliate, is really much part of a bigger command and control structure. Would you agree with that? And that is important. Making sure that we follow every one of those command and controls aspects is important to us. So that's kind of from a manning point of view. I'll let other people talk about how we develop and how we respond to the future needs of the community. But right now, one of my big things, because I'm a control person, is to make sure that, and there's a lot of things going on in the community, that we never want anybody to have questions about the way we operate. We consider ourselves a public service. Our meetings are open to anybody at any time. We have public forums. This is an example. We want people to come to us. We want to be as transparent as we can, and we want to be as responsive and as good as stewards as we can with what we need to do. That's my 2 cents worth, anyway.
I want to be more of a partner with the community instead of
Thank
coming
you.
in and saying, hey, we came in, we identified this problem, now we're going to show you how to fix it.
Right.
Which never works out,
Mm-mm.
versus what we've been trying to do a lot more recently, and that's part of why this is happening, is listen to the community.
Right.
You know, if the only phone calls we're getting are about 85-year-old people that need help with
A roof.
with roof, you know, with the roof while they're, you know, because they're no longer mobile, we don't need to be focusing everything on building houses for 20-year-olds if that need isn't there. So we're really trying to take a bigger look you know, substandard housing is a huge issue across the county. Well, we don't have volunteers do roofs anyway, so maybe we should start looking more at doing some roofing projects. That way we can knock it out, get those families, at least their house isn't gonna
Settled.
keep
Yeah.
falling apart. You know, at least we can get it dry and start kind of helping really react to what the community needs instead of just kind of assuming Habitat knows what's going on.
We can build houses.
I think that's a really neat idea.
Yeah.
There have been efforts in the past that never fully developed where they would go in and help. We do have that federal home program,
Mhm.
capital H-O.
Trying to figure out how to steal that thing.
And I know you, we had that conversation. And it's a great program, but the people have to relocate while they destroy their home and
Right,
rebuild.
and-
And so that becomes an issue, and a lot of the ones that we've begged to let us replace their deteriorated home with a new home aren't willing to let us
Yeah.
take advantage.
I see that happen a lot too, because a lot of the families that need that help are in a family home that's been there for generations, and they're about to lose 2,000 square feet to their new home because it was, you
Yes,
know, it's
it's
an old.
And what I'm
it's an old
referring
fashioned-
to is the little brick home across from the Carter home, which was your first
Right.
home.
Yeah.
That's one of them from that federal home program.
Right.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
they don't do the brick anymore. It's the concrete
Hardy.
hardy plank. But they're cute homes, very similar look to the Habitat homes. But we didn't have any takers so far this year. We didn't have any takers last
We need
year.
to coordinate with you.
Yeah,
Because it could be a way
they're-
of maybe getting one of those families into a house, and then we get the lot, and we build another house.
Yeah, no, that might be,
We kind of,
yeah.
we kind of leapfrog around.
Because they have to have already owned the property. So
Well,
see, that would help
Yeah,
y'all, wouldn't
yeah.
it?
You know, we had,
But,
with the ramp project, and we're getting off here, and maybe I should talk to you
Yeah.
about this separately. But with the ramp project, we ran into a situation where we had family that the home was in such bad situation.
I can probably
And
tell
they-
you what house it is, yes.
They brought in another mobile home, and it
Oh,
was
no, this one.
almost as bad as the one, and they got taken as far as the price. But I did not know about this program. It would've been
There's
ideal
several dilapidated houses around town where we have gone and asked them and offered them. And I've given out packets to, I guess it's Pastor Brune on that, to Ministerial Alliance to pass on the information. But we are qualified for that, and it's year-long, but there are stipulations.
Okay, I'll
But
talk
there's
to you
similar
about it.
homes.
And that is
yeah.
the biggest difficulty for those families
Is the-
how do you find somewhere to stay for a year where you can and not afford where you're already living?
Yeah.
So, you know, it doubles what they're spending basically for about a year.
Unless they can move in with a loved
Right,
one.
stay with
And
a
most of the
loved one,
ones
stay
that
with
have
them.
qualified in the past are elderly,
Mhm.
either widows or widowers that are on a
Because we had to
fixed
do that with the
income.
recovery team. We had to buy that trailer for one family just because there was no other options. And it was, you know, well, you'll have to stay in the yard in the RV while we fix the inside.
Mhm.
But at least the inside's getting fixed,
Yeah,
you know,
that's.
just depending on the family and what they're capable of.
I didn't realize
you
y'all were
know.
doing that. That's a good
We
idea
did it
for a
one- we did it for
temporary
one family, yeah.
structure.
There's a third issue that hadn't come up, and that is volunteers. We're in a county that has only 20,000 residents, roughly, and getting volunteers is very difficult because people are working. And the majority of the people that work in Habitat are us old folks. We're retired and we're the ones that have time. But we also wear out. And whereas in larger communities, say Austin or even Bastrop, you have big groups of younger people that can come in, work for a day, work for a week. Habitat in Austin, I know they have team building days, and where, let's say, Toyota comes in, you know, and they bring their people in there, rah, sis, boom, bah, and they can throw that house up in a day or two. You know, whereas we're taking a year because we just don't have the manpower.
Do you ever get LCRA to come out?
No.
We're working on it.
Okay.
We've been working
We
on
just
that.
don't have the big employers here.
Right.
But, you know, it would be good to have, one of the things, Leonard, that I would like to recommend is that we look at a recruiter. That is a volunteer within the board that is a recruiter that goes to corporations, you know, in the county.
Gotcha.
Goes to the churches, et cetera, and recruits for specific building days and projects.
Duly noted.
Can I add to that? And y'all have maybe already looked at this suggestion, but I know from working in the school that different businesses in town would allow their employees to come, leave work in working hours to read with the kids. There's a word for it that
Yeah.
leaves me right now.
That's all right.
But a mentor the kids. And the thought had occurred to me that if we could, because we don't have businesses that have enough employees to let a lot of them go, even the city itself doesn't have that. And I have talked to Sean about this, and we kind of dropped the deal on it, but allowing employees to take a paid day to go work on one of the days for Habitat.
I used to do that.
I like the idea.
We've been talking.
Have you talked about
But
it?
if I can add, I'm sorry.
No,
Go
it's
ahead.
okay. I think we just slid off the.
But it's how we can help Habitat improve.
Yeah. What's Habitat going to do to improve the county? Is that basically what we were?
Your question.
Well, my question was what improvements would you make for Habitat for Humanity, and then why would you make those improvements?
Okay.
So actually, we're on topic.
So long as went all the way around. and we came right back.
It's volunteer recruitment. It's volunteer
Well,
recruitment. But you're
yeah,
right,
it's-
20,000 people sit in the end zone at Kyle Field. I mean, it's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you're right, and Kenny's been doing a lot of that, I think, just.
Well, I was about to say, Leonard and I just had Walmart
Yes, we
came
have.
out last
this
weekend.
past
and
weekend.
I got, what, 8 people?
And they paid them.
Walmart came out,
They were on.
and they were kind enough, to get some people together to help prime the Cisneros house. Let's see, not this coming, but next weekend, McCourts and Sons have decided that they wanted their group of employees, or a group of their employees, to come out and help. So we're started chipping at the wall, if you want to call it that.
And we have been
But-
being more creative, but, sorry.
The way I'm kind of going with your question here, without a doubt, Habitat definitely has its challenges. We have started out as an organization because there was a need for affordable housing. And the wisdom of the founders is that it wasn't just LaGrange, it's for the whole county. So that's why our affiliate is county-wide. That being said, we have made a little bit of inroads in the city of Schulenburg. We have built 2 houses there. But we also know that there's a need in Flatonia as well. And I don't know about Round Top, but I'm sure there might be 1 or 2 people
Couldn't afford it.
that need some help over there too.
I'm assuming we're affluent.
But the thing is I think you're kind of catching a hint that there's a finite number of people that live in the county. There's a finite number of people that can volunteer. And a lot of the people that do volunteer, if they're a little bit older, that help with the construction phase and that, and which is anybody's always welcome. But a lot of the younger group too, they're busy trying to raise their families, do what they can at their homes. They're involved with their church, where they're volunteering as well. They're also volunteering with the Little League T-ball and basketball, because the kids, I don't know, they're very active kids nowadays. But nonetheless, a lot of that takes time. So the challenges that I see for Habitat moving forward is one, definitely volunteerism, is how we can do our business a little bit differently If we can, go ahead and bring in more corporate sponsorship, whether it's small businesses, medium businesses, and definitely for sure the larger businesses, that would be fantastic. We are struggling to find ways to engage that next generation that's right behind us, because they're going to be inheriting this community, or actually they're already a part of the community, and how they can keep this community together for what they grew up with. So we're challenged with that. The other challenge, of course, we've touched on also is affordability for building our own homes, because as everybody knows, cost of everything are going up, materials, the property, and everything, and we're still trying to maintain that affordability. So we're also looking at having to maybe do our business slightly different. One of the examples that we're currently looking at is that there's a tract of land, 5.2 acres. It used to be an old cotton gin. It's been sitting vacant for many, many years. And what we're looking at doing, it's going to cost us a pretty penny, but what it'll do is stabilize the per lot price, so that we can build approximately 23 homes on there. If that's all we did was just build homes on there. And that in itself, by locking in the price of the lots versus buying a lot this year and then build a house, then buying another lot next year to build a house, because what I've seen over the last just 5-6 years, the price of that lot is increasing on an average of about $5,000 a year. So it doesn't take long for us to be priced out of the market ourselves, even though we want to do this good work. So yes, we have a lot of challenges. So we're looking at different ways in which we can engage our community in how we do our business itself. And I agree with Patrick, it's kind of reaching that point where our organization is growing, and we need to have people that can be there on a day-to-day basis, because that's a struggle with our board right now that we're kind of going through. Is my term's coming up, or ending, I should say, and we're going to have elections in a couple of months. And some people are going to stay, some people are going to go, but the board right now, for the most part, we all have day jobs that we're doing. So some people are going to stay on, some people are going to go, but whatever area that they were working in, whether it was fundraising, whether it was church relations, and especially if we have a build going on, such as material procurement and things like that. Well, who did y'all use last time? Who volunteered for that last time? I mean, it's a struggle trying to keep all that information together.
Maintaining.
And one of the things too is that we're trying to find ways to raise our funds sooner versus what it has been in the past, which is 2 years to raise funds to build one house. By the time you get back to starting to build that house, you've lost all your volunteer base and you're starting over from scratch. So if there's a way that we can improve our fundraising, then that would definitely help on the volunteer issues. Won't solve them, but it'll definitely help. So yeah, we have a lot of challenges as an organization moving forward. But I do feel that there's a lot of positive, we've figured this out, and this was even before Hurricane Harvey hit town. And that is, there's more demand for affordable housing than what we can actually even build. So
It's been an issue for 30 years.
I'm going to mention, we talk about these issues and so on. I understand about the lots. That's number one. Me, it's volunteerism. I've been doing this since 2007. The first house, a lot of volunteers. Second house, pretty good, still not. And after that, it was like, what happened? And I think, someone mentioned and so on, I think you need someone that is their job. And I don't know how you do this, because we've talked about this. At our church, we have a social ministry committee, and I'm on that committee, and I'm the Habitat guy. And so every time we have a meeting, they say, how's Habitat going? And then if they say, is there anything, we'll give them money, we'll do that. Or when can the kids, can they help, and so on. That's one way of doing it, where every church has a representative who knows about Habitat and who can answer questions about Habitat, because I don't care. I've been doing this since 2007, and I still get people to come up to me and say, why are you just giving these homes away to these people? and I go, how many times have we said that it's a step-up program, and here, it's like you have to carry a folder around, and here, as you mentioned before, we need to get that out there. We need to be spokespeople for that, because as our church and so on, I'm the Habitat guy. They don't know my name, but they'll come and say, is there any way, I've got some materials, is there any, well, not storage and all that, or is there anything that you need? So it's a way, and we talked about this before, somebody though who really is, you were good at this though, at the beginning, of getting out there.
Oh, yeah, he pushed us.
You know what I mean? But I mean, it was, and they say, here he comes, run.
Right. It's either money or volunteer.
Yeah, either one or the other. But that's what you have to have. You have to have that spokesperson, someone who's going to do this, and who goes out there and searches, looks at the kids. What could we do with the schools? Or at the different places? Well, maybe this plant and this one, they only have 2 or 3, but if you get those with these 2 and 3, you know what I mean? It's somebody who's really constantly out there doing that.
I think that the answer to that question is to have that champion for the cause.
Yes.
Is a permanent fixture within Habitat.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I call that the executive director.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one person puts his hand, his finger, his words into different places in the community, and it's that constant follow-up. It's like
and it works.
it's
a
coming
squeaky
on.
wheel. You want to shut it up if nothing else.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But see, that's what you did.
I know.
But I want
He was always
to add
out
to
there.
that just
Here
a
we
little
come.
bit.
Huh?
I want to add to that just a
Okay.
little bit. And what I found is that if you can get prominent businesses and or organizations within the community to make that commitment. I realize it's so hard to get it out of them, but if you can get them to make that commitment, then it seems to make it a little bit easier for the next person to say yes.
Yes, but it goes back to the person that gets
yes.
the commitment, and you've got to have, when you use the term executive director, that's exactly what it is. I'm actively involved with the Texas Ramp Project, and the Texas Ramp Project has gone through everything that Habitat has gone through as far as starting out all volunteer. Every nickel that came in went out to build ramps. Well, we've built over 16,000 ramps in the state of Texas. Think about that. These are handicap ramps. And this has been going on for 35 years. Well, we're at the size now, funding-wise and business-wise, the number of ramps, that we actually have had to hire and compensate people to do specific jobs. One's the executive director, but he's a retiree. His compensation is basically transportation and lodging and food, because he travels all over the state. And he's out there hustling to set up organizations, local organizations, and help us with recruiting volunteers. We have to have administrative staff. You got to have at least one.
Especially our line of work.
Yeah, especially because, we don't build it, and we have to build it and service those
Service
loans.
it for 30 years.
And we've asked the local banks, I don't mean to brag, I don't, but that was one of the things that we said, all of these banks have a charter. And part of their charter is they have to be
Invest in the community.
We go, look, can you just service the loans? Can we tell you who these people are, and you send out as part of what you do? can you service these loans and make sure they're getting paid and then report to us when their money's deposited? And you know, we'll contract with y'all to do that or volunteer to do that. And I think we've gotten some place and then they know.
We've been chipping at that wall.
Yeah.
We've made very, very little inroads, but since we have a group of diverse people here,
Yes, if y'all know
anybody
it,
that has
check
any
with your
good
friends.
pictures, please let me know, and I'll be glad to leverage them.
Yes. Oh, there you go.
Not,
Blackmail.
not a problem.
Don't write that down.
Well, it's been reported.
And what your-
But,
can you tell us what your name is again?
John Doe. But kind of touching on this a little bit more, and that's another area that I see that Habitat is going to need to do is find more diverse ways in order to engage the community.
Yes.
Like, for example, here again, purchasing this piece of property that we're trying to do, that little if we can do this. I know that we ought to be able to put a warehouse on it. If we can put the warehouse on it, it's already been proven that if we have space, we can get donations, good donations. Like, for example, how many square feet of flooring did we
Something
pick
like
up?
10,000 square feet of
Yeah,
flooring.
10,000 square feet of flooring.
High-end flooring.
Right now, it's under
No
a
place to
lean.
put it.
Right now, it's under a
Yeah,
lean-to
yeah.
at somebody's barn.
Yeah.
But it's dry.
Nicest darn lean-to in the county.
Let's see, and Kenny's favorite thing is, oh, well, I can get paint.
Yeah,
But I have to get,
144 gallons at a time.
that's the only hitch.
That's the catch.
So you gotta have a place to put it. The other aspect of all of this is, and I'm gonna emphasize it again for obvious reasons, so please take this to heart, is trying to engage as many other organizations as we can. And if we can bring organizations in from outside of LaGrange, outside of Fayette County, then all the more the better. We do a good service, Habitat as a whole, not just in this county, but nationwide. As a matter of fact, it's an international organization. So if just some small college or two that could kind of help pitch in and help, like Blinn or A&M or them, I don't know, them people over there in Austin, just them being a part of whatever we do, even if it's volunteering on Landscape Day, then that helps bring attention in a lot of different ways to the need for affordable housing. And the need, here again, that even though you may be a student, if you're going to be a part of a community, that there's also a part of giving back to the community that makes a difference.
All right, what's the
Okay,
next
is
question?
that a good one?
So our next question will be, what is your understanding of the broader community's perceptions of Habitat for Humanity?
I just made a note of that. Well, let's back up
Ooh, a head scratcher.
to what you were saying. That people still today say, why are you giving those people that house? When we started this, and actually it was started by a Lutheran church in about
Yes, it was.
2005.
Yes, it was.
04.
04? Okay, thank you. And it was just slow to get started, like everything is. But when my wife and I started going around the different churches, that's all we heard. Well, why are you supporting a giveaway program? We would say it over and over. This is not a giveaway program. These people actually buy their house. Now, all this time has passed by. I have to say, in general now, what I read in the paper, what I hear on the street, is Habitat for Humanity has been accepted by this community.
Yeah, I think so.
And that goes a very long way, because now people are willing to generously donate. They speak well about it. Other programs are compared to, and I've read it in the paper.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you do it like Habitat for Humanity? And that, to me, has driven Habitat's success. And we try to do things right. We don't try to shortcut. I think that our track record has been exceptional. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be having this meeting.
Correct.
So those, just taking care of the basics and sticking with the right thing to do has helped Habitat in the community more, I think, than anything else.
One of the things that some of the nonprofits that I've been involved in before that we do is, like this meeting here, have a photograph and submit it with a story to the paper.
Mhm.
And in that story, you can reiterate again that this is a hand up, not a handout.
Exactly.
And
Hammer away on it.
periodically, when you have a board meeting or when you're working, they're always looking for fillers.
Mhm.
So if you turn in a picture with what you're doing,
Oh, they
and
love it.
every time, reiterate that, it'll get in
It's
the
a column
paper.
they don't have to fill.
Yes, it does the work for them, see?
But there is something to that repetition to the point where, like at our church, I don't get, from our church, I don't get that question.
Uh-huh.
Because they know, because they've heard it so many times, But now there'll be things like, what's Habitat doing now and all of that. And they'll still say, are y'all building a house? I said, yeah, there are three.
I know.
It's
amazing.
but it's that constant kind of where they see it. They've got to hear it, and they've got to see that things are going on, and you've got to repeat that.
Well, I've got good
Every
news.
time you have a different volunteer group,
Yeah.
you take a picture of
Oh,
them
yes.
working on it and submit it.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes all it has to be is the caption.
Yeah, it's just
It's
the
a
cap-
picture and the
People love
caption.
pictures of people.
And we've
People love
actually,
pictures of people.
That's right.
and we've actually added a marketing major that's joining our board to
Yes.
specifically handle
Great.
all of our public relations, all of our marketing.
Really?
And she works for the paper.
And she works for the paper right now,
Boom.
and she's actually putting together basically like a year-long schedule so that we are in the paper. Make sure it gets double sent down to Schulenburg and Flatonia.
That's great.
Make sure, heck, even Shiner writes about Fayette County Habitat because there's nothing else going on in Shiner. So if we can get those, we've been building, actually, we did KBLG recently, getting out on the radio more because they record you once and they'll play it for a couple months.
K-Time
just
is
trying
new.
to be a little.
K-Time is new in town.
Yeah.
I need to stop by and meet him. I haven't met him yet.
They're
they're
really
actually-
looking for interviews.
Yes,
Okay.
and I heard one
So-
yesterday.
Gargle.
on it. Yeah.
Not a problem.
It was Las Patrones restaurant. It was
Okay.
on yesterday on K-Time.
Richard brought up something that to me is very near and dear because it's more personable. I mean, it's one thing to hear things on the radio. It's definitely nice if you see something in the local paper. But that more personal touch, having individuals such as Mr. Copeland, that, that's the Habitat man, that tie-in. But to maybe take that maybe just half a step more, in the sense that, because from what if I'm understanding correctly, at your church, everybody kind of gets together and you're bringing Habitat's perspective. I'm just guessing that there's other organizations that are bringing their perspective also at this meeting, yes?
Well, the social ministry is looking at people in our community, first the church and then the community, because we take a collection once a month. They call it the brown bag collection, and that money goes into a pile, and then we use that money for people who are in need and so on, or we'll give it to things like during the summer, we give it to the ramp.
Lunch bag program.
And paying utilities where it goes into a pool. So everybody on the committee talks about things that they're aware of. Somebody works at Amen, Second Chance. So somebody who's represented for all these things. And then they started asking about Habitat, so I became the spokesperson for Habitat about what's going on, and how's and they're aware of it. They know it, and those people talk to other people. So I'm not just the one person.
I was gonna say I don't want to put Bill on the spot, but Bill, we all kind of know what the Habitat is in the community. You're our community member at large here. Do you have a perception of Habitat? What was your perceptions coming into this? I'm just interested in hearing. Are you aware of us? Do you aware that we're up to 8 out? What do you think the level of it is among just the uninformed citizen, or maybe somebody who's not as connected as
Oh,
we
I
are.
just think generally it's the trusted organization.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
So high trust, and you could see that with the Hope Hill business, that, well, if only Habitat was doing that, then everything, then it would have
It's the
solved.
buzzword.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard that. I guess I like to
No,
hear it.
well-
But it is important that somehow through osmosis, Habitat in Fayette County here has, I think generally in the community, has built up that reputation and that sense of trust. And that, I think, will make our mission easier. Doesn't necessarily get us any more volunteers, but it's good to hear it.
But it allows you to expand,
Thank you.
perhaps, to do things that aren't the normal.
Yeah, new
Habitat.
things, new different approaches.
So, find ways to engage other people, especially younger people if we can.
Yeah,
To
that's-
start that process so that when they become of age, then it'll be a natural process for them. Oh man, hey, we're gonna go volunteer
Yeah.
over there. They need some help over there doing something.
Like we've got a couple of the high school shop classes are building the picnic tables for the families, for the homeless.
Oh, that's
Start getting
beautiful.
them involved. That way we can have 14-year-olds working on a saw because they're not under our insurance policy. And actually, when we were at the Capitol, that was
Right.
another program we ran into at the Capitol that was really interesting, actually. They printed out 16, 18, 20-foot long nylon sheets for your header and baseboards of your wall sections, delivered all the materials to the church, and they assembled the wall sections
Yes.
of the church under their own insurance, so that it was, they could do it as a daddy-daughter day,
Yes.
learning skills. And then the church comes over the next Sunday, brings it to the house, does a wall raising, done. And that way, instead of trying to, because we know it doesn't work, it's hard to get people from the church to the job site, so it's kind of let's try to see what we can do to take parts of the job site to the church and see if that's a way to knock it out a little quicker. But that was a pretty cool, we framed up a house inside the Capitol Rotunda in a day. If a congressman can follow these instructions, and
It's
build a
gotta be
wall,
easy.
anybody out here can do it.
It was interesting
What's your
watching
name
them
again?
do that.
Really? Leonard Leftwood.
What's your next question? This is
So-
fun. We're enjoying it.
So we talked a little bit about some of the issues in Fayette County,
Yes.
such as the housing issues. What other issues do you guys see in this county, and how can Habitat for Humanity help? And if you wanted to
Retaining
expand
young
more.
people, retaining young people. I mean, I'm glad we have these universities and colleges
Mm-hmm.
that you guys attend. And whenever you get a kid to attend one of those, they tend not to come back.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get them back? How do we make sure our community is as vibrant 20 years from now as it is now? And when we're wanting to sit on our porches, who's going to be there? And we've talked about this, Ed and I, and we have a community resource person. He's not here, but there is, I think one of the things that we need to do is make sure people will come back to our community, and certainly affordable housing, even if it's just clearing someone out of an apartment. Maybe this young couple isn't ready to buy, but because we've housed somebody else, now there's some place for them to settle until they get going. So,
And we're
go ahead.
increasing the stock of starter homes.
Thank
Because
you.
you cannot build 1,000 square foot house in
No,
this community
I
and
don't-
turn a profit.
no.
There's not a company that can pull it off. We're the only ones that.
'Cause we're not profit-driven.
Because most of these families aren't gonna wait a generation or two and then tear the thing down to build a 1,600
No,
square
that's
foot home.
correct.
They're gonna sell it off, and then you have that starter home back available on the market.
That's
a
correct. At
generation
some
down.
point in time, that's
That is a
correct.
long-term impact we have.
There's also a generational need that people, as Sean says, long in the tooth. I said, you mean like me? And it caught him. But they're wanting to downsize. And to downsize to a smaller home in LaGrange, because I've been looking for the last 6 months, is what you could afford to buy on a fixed income that's the size that you want, like a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, but not
Yeah.
huge rooms. Because physically, you're
Yeah, you
incapable
want it
of
all
taking
in
care of
the whole,
large
that's
yards
right.
and whatever. And they're almost tear downs
Yes.
that are available.
Yeah.
There's not a market out there for people who want to downsize into like 1,000 square
yeah.
foot
Part of our
home
plans.
on a smaller lot. One of the things that we have been in discussion recently at the city is we have a 7,000 square foot lot or requirement in our ordinance.
Minimum required.
Minimum. And that tends to, for affordable housing, to be a little large. And families nowadays don't want big yards. And we are so property limited within the city, is looking at doing some adjustment to the ordinance and making some more land available. But
Well, y'all helped us when we were donated a good piece of property. It was one chunk.
and
Y'all helped us
it's an
divide-
L shape,
it's
which
an
we
L-shape.
never approved, and we approved it.
And y'all did. And we
Thank
we
you.
got to
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And we were given that property because I don't think it was a funny shape. Wells Fargo gave us those lots.
Right.
And the city was good enough to help us
And look,
divide
we put-
that.
y'all
Three
put
lots.
3 people
Yeah.
in homes. That was
And
amazing.
then we're also doing drainage and, the other things are gonna improve really the whole area, so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was gonna say, it does, because even Sarah's already called the police because some guy walked through the construction site. And that sucks that someone walked through, but it proves there's a vested homeowner there that is
Watching.
interested in their property, keeping an eye on the community. I've had a lot of people that were relocated from the flood call me saying, hey, do you have any resource for fences? Because I have people walking around this and that. So there's probably 16 new people in that part of town that want that place to be cleaned
Yeah,
up because they
no-
just put roots down.
And it's funny,
You
that
know?
part of town is looking good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Not
that's
construction.
what
I say, I've had more people that,
In what part of
Yeah.
town is this?
This is here.
My town.
Actually, when we're done, if y'all
Our
want to see
town.
the current construction site, I'll show it to you,
Okay.
if that's the part of town we're in.
Yeah.
It's like-
One area for expansion also, I worry about the house across the street from City Hall that's for sale.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we had a friend who, she was living in a warehouse, moved in there, all sorts of
Yeah, the
problems.
boarding house, yes.
There's a boarding house, but she got her stuff together.
Right.
Went to, got into college, has a job, has now moved out. Is that a Habitat possibility to think about?
Yes, we've been
Having-
thinking about that.
Okay.
Transitional housing,
Right.
maybe end of life housing, or
Yeah.
from
'Cause that was- yeah.
There's
You can do those kind of
there are
things, yeah.
affiliates that do
That do that sort of thing.
Yes, that do
There's
that.
precedent for it.
There's
Yeah.
precedent for that.
Oh.
And
Well,
so,
there
It's
is
kind
a
of
need for
bucking the
that,
system a little bit.
yeah.
Well, and
But it's
also
also
you
becoming
can't
the
do everything,
standard
and-
as,
It's still
As-
Habitat for Humanity.
Yes,
Right,
right.
right.
Still Habitat.
But
for
that place houses a lot of people that
Yeah.
if it was sold and, those people were.
But not that we would buy that. I'm
Right.
thinking like
But
garden
something
homes,
like
like,
that.
you're talking about littler lots, littler homes. Somebody who says, I'm 80 years old, I don't necessarily need a mortgage.
Like the development outside of Smithville.
Yeah.
On the Upton Road, right?
well, I've even seen some affiliates it was interesting, they were partnering with smaller rural communities with the historical preservation societies, because no one had the money to go in and fix up, let's say, the Fison house. So something like that ended up becoming a habitat rental property so they could keep a rural, old-fashioned
Money
housing in the
pits for
community.
humanity.
Money
It's
pits
just
for
fact-
humanity, I know.
But it took care of the issue. It ended up, they got the house fixed. It ended up being able to draw in tourism money.
And you
Because they're
preserve
keeping,
some
you
of
know,
the history.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at some of that stuff. And not every house, of course, you would do that for, but.
And I don't know how far we'll go down that, but that
Right.
is part of I would say the next chapter for even Fayette County Habitat for Humanity is beginning to expand our housing offerings and our program of services. And that, something that would fit. Right, Ed? I mean, am I
Well, we had
misspeaking here
that-
when I look at that schematic? I
That
see these.
5-acre
Yeah.
tract
Yeah.
also includes a section
Of-
for adult living.
Yes.
Oh,
And-
great.
And
Yeah.
so
Two
those are
bedroom, one bath
smaller,
units, yeah.
smaller units
Garden
with
house.
parking
Yeah.
place real close by and in kind of a segregated area away from the playground a little bit, because I don't think you want to be on the swing set, I'm not sure, but.
They should have room for
So-
17.
I'd like to hear them on
They
the
said how many?
17.
17 of these
That would be a
Oh,
really
that'd
big
be
kick
great.
in
Well,
the.
see, that's something that the churches ought to organize and take over because they all see the need.
Absolutely.
That's true.
And
That's
that's
a
a
good
big
point.
reason why we knew the need was because
Right.
I get a phone call once a month that unfortunately I tell everybody, don't play organ in LaGrange because the stroke is coming.
Yeah, oh,
Because
no.
I get a call every month.
Well,
An
our organist is-
an organist has had a stroke.
Yeah.
They need a place for less than $700 a month. Occasionally, they need a 2-bedroom if they are just at that level where they could use assisted help.
Yeah.
Can Habitat go in and purchase like an older house that needs a lot of renovation and renovate it yourself?
That's in
We
the-
have talked about that for, I don't know. You know, my thing is about Habitat for Humanity and so on, when you have a smaller community, like Fayette County, it's just the way it's structured and so on, the size, 3 cities, that kind of thing. Seems to me, if you push it and so on, or start something that says for our community and so on, with part of Habitat, why can't we adjust what we do instead of having to build one house every 2 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been through this before where they set these guidelines.
But they set the guidelines for some good reasons. I talked to the
understand,
person
yeah.
in Austin, and I can't remember what year that was, maybe 2 or 3, 4 years ago, and I asked that question, and I was told, well, when you build the new house, everything is new, and you've got a warranty for 1 year. These people don't have to do anything. If something breaks, they just call the repair guy, and it gets fixed under warranty.
Yeah.
If you take an old home, and you fix the bathroom, you fix the kitchen, what's your obligation with the air conditioner that fails next month? And then the plumbing, then electrical wire, then the flooring, then the foundation sinks. You can't ever disconnect yourself. You become the repair person for many, many houses, and you don't build any new ones because all of your volunteers are in the repair business.
And,
You know, the one.
and my
that-
point is,
Yes,
what
sir.
if that's what's needed?
Yes, sir.
Because the
Okay,
thing is,
but
if you do it for this, you sign a contract, we're gonna do this. That's it. We're not doing your air conditioning. This is what it is.
Well, we
And-
do have a brush with kindness.
We do.
I know.
Bill,
Yes, but
Bill and I went out and
Yes.
we did a
You helped.
house. You were
Yes,
there.
We did-
I was there. That's how we
did the
got together.
bathroom, but
Yes.
that's exactly what he's talking about happened. When we finished that, we weren't finished. And we had
Yes.
to go back in and do other stuff. Even though that was never part of the agreement.
It's a rabbit hole.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'll give to light a little bit of an experience that I encountered just right after Harvey.
We'll get to the next question.
There was a gentleman and his wife that had a property on Main Street, South Main, excuse me, and they were wanting to donate it to Habitat with the idea
Yes.
that somebody, a flood survivor, we could renovate it for them and put them in there. Well, Mr. Elliott and I went out and reviewed the property with the homeowner. And what we found was, of course, it's an older home. It was well built in its day. But what it was gonna cost for us to go in there and replumb it, redo the electrical, because you could tell that the
Knob and
wires
tube, yeah.
were outdated. Definitely was gonna need insulation, for sure. And by the time we got through going through the checkoff list, it was cheaper for us to tear down the house and build a new one.
But they didn't want, they didn't want to donate the
But
property.
correct, the people said, no, that's not what we want to do. We don't want you to tear this down and put a new one up. We want this one fixed up and
We'll give
to
it
help
to you, but
somebody.
we want to tell you what to do with it.
But
That's not part of your plan.
Yeah, I
mean,
know,
that's-
I know.
But I don't know. I'm not totally disagreeing with what you're saying. I mean, if there's a way that we can come in and get a piece of property and it's going to require minimal renovation or refurbish in order to make it work, hey, I think it's doable. But the numbers have got to definitely answer the
Well, the brush
deal.
with kindness is already in place.
Yes,
It's just a
right.
matter of deciding to do that.
That's a program that runs, it's part of the Habitat
Yes, it is.
charter. It's called Brush with Kindness, and it's really for smaller affiliates that might, Habitat International ideally wants you to build at least one house a year. And if you can't build a house a year, they want to see you're engaged. So they came up with this program called Brush with Kindness that would let us do a repair job. In lieu of building a new home, we would do maybe 1 or 2 repair jobs a year and show the Habitat for International our earnest effort in pursuing those goals, which is remember when I first started off, I said that's the one of the things that we enjoy the most about being a Habitat affiliate is we have these standards of conduct. And so, but your point is there, I think you're saying, Richard, there may be more need for that than there is for starter homes.
And maybe that's not part of Habitat.
Well,
Maybe that's
we may have
sort
to-
of like
That's something too, though, because
else.
Habitat has that critical home repair program that's aimed more at roofs, foundations, electrical, stuff you'd have to hire a contractor for anyway. It would be any potential warranty to be under that contractor, and almost don't involve any volunteers, so no, there's no one there to
Professional
hook
tradesmen.
in.
Right.
You know,
The,
at least that offers some of those solutions
Yeah.
for some of those families.
the home program started out a repair program, and they would come and evaluate your property and what repairs need to be done. And they dropped that. And they said, but the expense of doing the repairs and trying to rehab the house outstretched what it would cost to build a new one. And so that's just.
Yeah, because if you
Take
look
for
at
what
the
it
home
is.
shows on
But-
TV where they come in and rebuild a home, you know, then
They can-
they're able to recoup their cost because they're able to sell that substantially more than they've
Yes.
got invested in it. And you're not doing that with Habitat. You're coming in and you're fixing the home up, and then you're gonna market that home. You're not gonna market the home, but you're gonna put a family in it, and you're gonna have a mortgage that's compatible with all the other mortgages, and yet you've got twice as much money invested into it. That's not smart business. That's not smart anything.
What's your next question?
Okay.
I'm enjoying this process.
Okay.
I'm glad y'all are here.
We could tell.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Well, good. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. So next, we want to know what does success look like to you for Habitat for Humanity?
What does success look like?
Yeah, the hope for outcomes.
What the mayor said right at the beginning about a blessing, when you go to the blessing. That's a sign of success. And what Richard said and Ed said about the kids going to college.
These social successes. I sometimes view our success in knowing that we have an organization that will be ongoing, that they'll talk about as old timers, you know, back in the 2000s when we were doing this. We were never going to exceed the number of units needed. And I'd like to think that whatever we do today, whatever commitments we make, facilitate the continuation of our program into the future. Sometimes I've been challenged in that thinking, Ed will tell you that. Sometimes I go, you know, I don't know if we've hit that critical mass. Remember that discussion we had?
Yeah.
That do we really have the volunteers? I think we do. I think the what's been, I hate to say it's a blessing, Janet, because it's your community, but the flood brought in interest and revenues into this community. And I think one of the fortunate players in this will be Habitat. We're in good financial condition, partly because of these revenues we've seen come in. I like to tease, I wouldn't say this about any other county, but when I was in Burnett, we had a big F4 tornado come through a small town, Burnett smaller, and that tornado did about $5 million worth of improvements in that town. So, you know, you know what I'm saying? So we're seeing that. And so I think that what we have done, Leonard, before the flood, we would have thought, well, we'll just keep going with that house every other year. We'll just muddle through this. I think we've kind of got a little bit of a kickstart. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I think the whole community has.
Yeah, I think the whole
anything
community.
like
Oh,
that
definitely.
Yeah.
regrounds the community.
And I think one of the big successes of Habitat, from where I sit, is that, and the flood too is partly responsible, but the community coming
My
together.
father's been doing that, I'm sorry.
That's quite a ring. But that it brought the community together. It gave those people who receive homes the knowledge that the community is behind them. And so in reality, the real blessing is of the storm is that it pulled the interest of community caring for each other and renewed emphasis
Yeah, it's a
on
reality
that
check.
caring.
It reminds you.
Yes,
Because you
how
said
fortunate you are.
Yeah, because you
are
see hundreds
reminded
of
that
homeless
you-
people and
uh-huh.
realize last
I
night you
think-
got pissed off because the toilet seat was
Uh-huh.
off. And it's a reality check. It absolutely is.
Definitely.
Yeah. For me, the success, and it's kind of expanding on what she was just talking about, I just love it when I'm seeing the different organizations and parts of the community all coming together and helping their fellow citizen. And just seeing them all, people from different walks of life caring for other people.
It's kind of a magical community.
Yeah, it is. It is.
There's
I
something.
mean,
Tragedy sometimes brings the good things out of people.
Absolutely.
So we have a tragic situation like that, then you see.
Kind of like the death bringing the family together.
Yeah, exactly. Even for some people that haven't
Yeah.
talked for years and they go to the funeral and renew their connection. So, yeah, I guess for me, it's the knowledge that the children and the family have a safe environment to live in, good lighting to do their studies, a warm bed at night. Those are the ones that we're working for as the next generation. The grandmothers and the fathers and the mothers and dads in their 50s or 60s, we can do a lot for them, but not as much as for the children. The children got a real
It's
good opportunity.
transformational for them.
Exactly. It's true.
Can we
Well, that's-
document that, the kids going to college from, can we get numbers?
We could.
Let's
do that.
collect the
Today-
data.
But,
Make a
you know,
few
and
phone
that's
calls, but-
wonderful, but also I'd like to, being an education background, the emphasis now is they shoved everybody through school that you gotta go to college, you gotta go to
Right,
college.
yes, right.
And we have blue collar workers
Yes.
and a need for that doesn't. So I would
Any
like to
sort of-
reframe
any
it to
sort of
do
post-
second,
Well, I-
secondary education or.
Yes.
or
High
se-
school
yeah,
graduation rates.
High
Yeah,
school graduation.
who goes on and
Well,
gets a
and-
career?
Yeah.
And as far as skill building, that's something Ed and Leonard, we've all been really kind of talking about is working with, well, you know Brandon, with the platform, is trying
Well,
to
that
start
was
some.
kind of trying to
Well,
say.
and-
what
and we have been
typically
working with them to
says.
try to kind of get the ball rolling and see if Habitat can be a skill builder for some of those kids that aren't college bound.
And the city, through the library and our Main Street program are doing a program called Career Cruising.
Yes.
And there may be some avenue there, and they start with sixth graders, and really, when you want volunteers in the future, you need to get them now.
Absolutely.
Well, look,
And a sixth grader is the perfect
Oh,
time, so
yes.
they start with sixth through 12th grade.
That's wonderful.
And their first cruise was through the bank, and they learned how to write checks, they learned how to set up accounts, they learned all these basic skills that we used to get. I got that in school. They don't.
Not anymore.
They don't
Right.
get those things in school anymore. When I first moved here in LaGrange, we had an automotive program, we had a house building and construction program that built some of the nice houses in Linwood area. A lot of the teachers were living in houses that were built by their students.
Y'all remember.
All kinds. There was cosmetology and all kinds
Yes, there
of
was.
vocational
Yeah.
type
Yes,
things.
there
Well,
was.
education does this. They go to this extreme and then they go to this extreme. We've been in, everybody's got to go to college, everybody needs to take these courses, and now we're starting to slowly
They're
get
middle
back
kids, right?
into
They're middle kids
realizing
as
there
well.
is value in these other skills and careers.
Not only value,
And
we,
need.
need, because we don't have electricians, we don't have plumbers, we don't have welders.
I always like to say the world is run by C students, you know, and if you think about that, it's the average person, right? The world is run by C students. They do a good job of running this world. They really do.
Do we have to reveal our grades?
No, and I'm one of them. I'm one of them. But they do it.
In some cases, that is makes
Very
sense.
capable, you know, and but you're right. You're right. But it is a badge of honor that we have that.
Well, let's get
Yeah.
Habitat Kids. How many kids
Yes,
do we have?
Habitat Kids, oh, that's good.
How many
Yeah.
are in Scouts? How
And,
many
and
are
that,
in-
that's part of what they're doing with the study too, is they're working
Okay.
on helping us develop an annual survey so that we can actually track the
Yes.
progress of
Okay.
these families. Because I wanna see
Yeah.
who went to Amen and hasn't been back since,
that's
since their mortgage
Right, the
fell.
whole matrix.
There's a lot of,
Number
I
of
know
months
I know
of
people's
payments
health.
made, right.
When you're suddenly not in that asthma-inducing house, all of a sudden there's less doctor visits. There's a lot of impact that our houses have.
Right.
And we definitely want to
Right.
start tracking that annually and see how that grows.
That's where this question is meant to go.
Yeah.
Your bill for
Yeah, and I'm-
pointing out that if there's other
Mhm.
things that you see as like, this is a metric.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
a survey.
Yes, and I failed to mention
These are the
that.
things we want.
Yeah, I
Right.
failed to mention this in the beginning. Along with the report, we are creating entrance and exit surveys for volunteers and family
Beautiful.
members
That's
who
great.
are working with Habitat for Humanity or will benefit
See,
from
we're
it.
up and
Well, we
up.
ought to have
We're up and up.
like a yearly census, employed, unemployed,
Right.
kids in school, kids graduated, activities, months of
Yes.
paid, just the whole, and maybe we could even collect income information.
Not sure.
Clean it up a little bit. so
Maybe
that it's
that
not-
is-
As long as it's
I like-
anonymous.
Well, yeah, well,
Yeah.
that and it's completely.
Involuntary.
Yeah, it's completely,
Yeah,
it's completely
yeah.
voluntary.
The surveys are going to be voluntary and they're meant to be anonymous.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Okay.
it'll be Habitat for Humanity to use as a tool for them to use in the future, and they can
Okay.
use what they
And
can
the
get
health
with the
component
data.
too would be interesting.
It is.
I don't know whether you.
In the interviewing process with the family, you can actually have an anonymous interview
Yeah.
with the family and say, where were you? Where are you now? And tell me what good
Well,
Habitat
it'd be
is.
nice to one day have a focus group with them.
No, yeah, that would be good. That would be
I bet
very
you their
interesting.
answers
I
would
bet
be
you'd
a lot.
learn a lot.
I bet you would.
Yeah, we need to. That's
Yeah.
something put on the
And
list.
we have tools
Okay,
now,
Kenny.
we have friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had it on recording.
And that, you know, and that's another.
They agreed to do
outcome.
it.
It's not the outcome, it's the thing, I'm just gonna repeat the same thing, is that professionally driven, organization. It's the, I'm being selfish, I'm being vain. I want Habitat to be that organization.
If
That's
you
a
hear
bench-
hammers, you want to assume it's Habitat.
And,
going.
yeah, and it's a benchmark, you know, this is the way.
I think it already is.
I know, but I wanna make
Around
sure
here.
we keep.
So other data would be
Yes, sir.
housing, the property values before and after Habitat arrives.
Right.
And track that over time to show how Habitat housing is increasing in value according to appraisal district compared to.
That's a good point.
Compared to other
And the
housing.
utility cost per
Actually,
unit
Yeah.
compared to the rest of
As a
housing?
whole, as a-
As a whole, because of the good insulation that we're doing,
Right,
good air
right,
conditioning
right,
systems.
Definitely.
Because we put in the energy saving measures that I know that are not
Exactly.
really required even by code. We're
That's
doing.
correct.
So we're doing a higher degree, better package of that. I
Yeah.
know we are.
Well,
I
these
don't
are-
know we are.
What you- yeah,
These
they-
are supposed to be
Don't be
50-year
right.
houses, easy to track.
Yeah.
And we had also talked about food security, the health impact and education. See, see how their grades increase after having a home with that well-lit workspace.
Right.
Right.
And really.
And actually, education says it all because it can be any kind of education.
Yes.
Right.
Any kind.
And that's something Patrick and I especially been talking more and more, because Habitat puts out a great little printout that basically shows how housing is the cornerstone that has the most impact on everything else. It gets you out of an unhealthy situation.
We'll
It
make sure it
helps
gets
with
published in
substance
the
abuse
paper.
against
We'll
all
get
sorts of
that
stuff.
published.
And that's another one that Jessica and I are working on, is actually for this year, since we are trying to do this much bigger project, is do a couple of articles of where are they now? Leticia Villalobos, how has her life changed now that she's
That
been in
would-
Habitat?
that
a few
would be
times?
great.
And shift that focus back, and again, that brings us the opportunity to go, well, she's still paying her mortgage because we charge mortgage. We kind of
Right.
beat that in one more time.
Yeah, one more time.
But I think that'll help. You want to see where, it's no different. You get the most enjoyment when you see the little kid growing up.
Right.
The community's going to be no different to see that they've helped
Making a
with that
positive
big change.
impact.
Absolutely.
That's good. Bill.
And then it's like a drug. We give them a little bit at a time, get them hooked on altruism, and
What's
we're
your
set.
favorite last question?
Okay,
We
so
got a couple more.
our last question.
Okay, perfect.
We know that Habitat for Humanity of Fayette County will be turning into its 20th year anniversary. And so,
Getting close.
yeah, so where do you see Habitat for Humanity beyond that 20th year anniversary?
Well, you saved that one for last, thank goodness.
That's what, 2024?
When you get to be our age, you don't buy green bananas.
You don't pay your utility bill till the last day in case you died before the 15th, you know?
Well, grad students today.
That's why you're always driving.
That's why I'm always No, I'm teasing. But yes, where do we see ourselves in 20 years? Gosh.
You won't be
But
here.
at the 20th anniversary.
I hope that we'll see.
Yeah.
I hope
20th anniversary.
Yeah, the
Oh,
20th,
where do you see
yeah, the
yourself in
20th
20 where do you see the
anniversary.
Oh, I thought you
organization in
said
20 years?
I thought 20 years from
20th
now.
anniversary.
I would just
Sorry.
quiet.
Will all year round.
Okay.
I see us getting, at that point in time, I feel we will have a piece of property that we're developing for the reasons that Leonard was saying. We need to be able to buy property while we can. It's never going to get any cheaper than it is right now. I think that we've tapped everybody who's willing to give us property, at least in this city, out. We want to really build a community, I think that it's fair to say, in the city of LaGrange. Mayor, we want to put a multi-purpose emergency response structure on there that we're going to utilize while we're building homes, but then it's going to be available for the next flood. And when somebody needs to bring in water or something, we can, well, I know, next tornado, next whatever.
Disaster.
Emergency.
Could be a
Disaster.
house
It could be,
burning
yeah.
or something.
And that we will integrate more and more into the community. I wish we could say the same thing for the county, but it's awful hard for us to necessarily, we won't be able to replicate a community approach like I think we will in LaGrange. That's going to be hard to do in Flatonia.
Right.
That's going to be hard to do in Schulenburg. Hopefully, Flatonia and Schulenburg will hook up with somebody. We need lightning rods in each community. We need somebody who says, man, if you bring us a house and funding and the volunteers, I'll get you 5 places to build these things over the next 5 years. But I see when we celebrate our 20th year we'll have gone from building a single home to having a multi-home project, well-managed, recognized in the community as a solid asset.
How about an executive director?
That's
Do you see
coming
that?
sooner than later,
Okay.
I believe. That's coming sooner than later.
I'm gonna be-
I see it in the tea leaves.
I'm going to be the negative voice in this.
All right, Bill, please.
My fear is that government is going to get involved, and I'm not talking about city government.
Yeah, right.
I'm talking about either state and, more importantly, federal government. And if that happens, it will ruin Habitat for Humanity. Because anytime government gets involved, you have too dadgum much regulation. You have too many hands in the pie. I mean, it just messes things up. We have so much volunteerism in this county, and it's because we don't have a lot of governmental interference. Ramp project. This city has been over backwards in helping us. We build ramps in accordance with ADA. Okay. The city does not require us to get permits, does not require us to have inspections, because they know what we build, and they know that we're doing it at no cost to the homeowner, and it's all volunteer. And so they allow us, Jeff has been out and inspected, and he knows what we do, but they allow us to do that. If the government was involved with it, rather than taking 1 day to build a ramp, or actually 4 hours to build a ramp, we would be taking 4 weeks to build that ramp.
It's amazing to watch how fast y'all put this up.
Yeah, 4 hours.
Well, they've had a lot of practice.
Well, even with Habitat, it takes, how long to build a Habitat house?
6 months normally.
All right, how long does it take
around
a...
9 months this time around.
Yeah.
Well, that's because we're doing 3 houses at one time. How long does it take a contractor to build a house?
65 to 90 days.
No. Yeah, not here.
Oh, well. Why
You're
don't
gonna
you
make,
answer
you're
that
gonna make
question?
any money in Austin, you build a house in Manatee.
No, I'm talking about in Fayette County.
You would think only when I'm
4
in
months, 6 months.
No,
You'll like
it
it
takes
as
a
long as you're not in
minimum
a
of
hurry.
6
Yes,
months,
that's
and more likely it's gonna take a year.
Just to see it.
And there,
I've
you have
seen it.
full-time employees working every day, as well as all the inspections and everything else. We still have the inspections, but we have volunteers who are dedicated, and we're doing the same or better quality than the home builders.
Okay, but why are you fearful about the government in the future?
Well, it's 4
having
years from
such
now,
a-
it's-
Because I'm looking down the road at the way things are going, and have
You do
been
s-
going for
you
the
do see a lot of
last
funding that's
60
been
or
cut for
70 years.
affordable housing.
Sure.
Funding that's been cut.
A lot of national funding that's been cut for affordable
I
housing.
will say
at the
that
national level.
for Habitat, and that's another point maybe your students would like to hear, is one thing I like to brag about, is that we are a totally non-governmental supported agency. We have no apologies and no reservations in telling people that we're a Christian-based organization. We don't require any religious test to be a homeowner, and you don't have to pass any religious test to be a volunteer or a board member. But we are a Christian-based organization. Bill, to your point, we don't want the government in our business. However, they have imposed additional regulations. And I don't know how you feel about it, but they require us, for example, to have a certified loan origination officer. Because it turns out Habitat for Humanity may be about the third biggest mortgage company in the U.S. Right? So, they don't want just regular people, not regular people, but untrained people talking to other people about their loans. Because it can be, we don't like to take applications for people. We like to have them fill out questionnaires, because once somebody fills out an application and they don't get on the program, now you owe them a bunch of letters for why they didn't qualify for the loan. Right. And it's gotten complicated, Bill, to your point. However, we've embraced those things. We have, I think, because it's made us more responsible and better stewards of the money that we're given. And I don't know, I'm one of these sick people that take a little bit of comfort in knowing that we're going by a regulated thing. I think we all have skin in the game that way. We all have to take it seriously, and we do. And I think that seriousness is reflected in how well we conduct our business, and ultimately how well we build these houses, and what we settle for or not settle for, and what we want to see go out as our product. So I'm not so much worried about regulation. I don't think we have much to fear. I don't see Habitat for Humanity volunteering to become a governmental controlled organization, although you're right, the government may impose it.
There won't be any volunteering aspect of it.
That's true. Anyway.
There's also, we had a really good time. We went up to the state capitol for the Habitat Advocacy Day and actually walked around, probably half a dozen or so legislators.
At least.
And talked about specific legislation that does impact Habitat. For one of them's the bootstrap loan program that we're able to use to increase our funding. Another was, what was the other one, do you remember? But that's something I personally think we as an affiliate should be more involved with, is giving a voice to our partner families, whether it be City Hall in LaGrange, Schulenburg City Council. Someone needs to talk to them on behalf of anybody.
We need to get you elected down there.
Same thing with the county and with some of these rules and stuff that do bite people in the butt.
There's only
It's
so
harder
much
to say
she's
no,
gonna
it's hard to say no to Habitat in the newspaper, type of a thing. But like one big issue I'm sure y'all dealt with is that damn Bureau-Veritas or whatever in Schulenburg. I'm just waiting. I mean, we use some company out of Austin to do all the cities.
Veritas.
Yeah.
Was it the trash? Remember the trash?
I'm just laughing. I'm waiting for him to come inside. I did my electrical, plumbing, everything. I'm not dealing with that. But I know that's got to be a huge pain in the butt for y'all, waiting for somebody to come from Austin to verify this. Hope he shows up on time. Hope he realizes you're following that actual.
Yeah. That's one of the problems with Veritas, is you don't know where they're going to come.
Yeah, no, exactly.
My son-in-law is in San Antonio building an apartment complex, and he has to deal with it.
That's an absolute. That's been holding back Schulenburg in general for a while now.
So that's the mixed blessing or curse, however you want to say it, in dealing with governmental agencies. of any type, whether it's on the local level and or on a higher level. And that's how each of them can sometimes, for a nonprofit, affect them positively or negatively, depending on how they want to run their governmental businesses. Fortunately for us, Habitat, and what I see in the future coming is a wonderful relationship locally, for sure. I see opportunities in neighboring communities such as Schulenburg and Flatonia. They do business a little bit different there. Hopefully we can, by what we do here, I know it does have an impact over there, maybe not as big, but they're seeing how we're thriving, we're growing, and we're making things happen here, and hopefully we can start, building our relations over there so that they come on board with our organization as we grow. I know on a state level, one of the things that I found was interesting was what we call the bootstrap program. Basically, the state of Texas is furnishing money for nonprofits that build affordable housing. And basically how it works is we go in there, we build this house, and the value of building this house is going to run something like in the neighborhood of, I'm just going to use round figures, so don't hold me to anything precise. Let's say it's going to run me $100,000 to build this home. Well, with the bootstrap program, if we meet the criteria that's there, then we're able to get approximately 50% of that money up front. The mortgage still has to be paid, and it's reliant on the homeowner or the mortgage holder to make those payments. If they don't, well then of course the affiliate is responsible to make that payment. That's the only, how you say it, little downside to that, yeah. Downside to that. But the thing is for our organization, we're trying to qualify for that because of the fact that what that'll do is that'll definitely help with our fundraising so that we're not out there struggling as hard. Yes, we still need to bring money in, but hopefully if we can have part of that money up front, well then that helps us to be building another house next year versus, okay, 2 more years, wait, raise the funds and then build another one. So that, I'm just giving you an example of how sometimes the government can help. Now on the negative side, as Patrick was alluding to, is that because of the uniqueness of Habitat and that we hold mortgages. We're not a for-profit organization, but we still hold mortgages. And as a result of that, the federal government classifies us as a bank, basically. And as a result of that, then we have rules and regulations, as with any bank, that we have to follow, even though we're a nonprofit organization. And then, of course, if we fail to follow those rules and regulations, well, we're not anything.
No. We're in trouble.
Yeah, so here's 2 different examples, or actually 3, and how things can work to our benefit and sometimes work against us.
And I'd say probably 75% of our regulations are financial post 9/11. Like you can see a extreme uptick in the amount of paperwork after that. That's been the biggest change.
After
to anything.
Not 9/11.
9/11.
2008.
Yeah.
Sarbanes-Oxley.
I was reading the thing the other day.
Some more
on the-
metrics.
Yes,
Sure you
more
don't.
metrics, yes, sir.
Metrics, delinquency rate on Habitat houses in Fayette County.
Yes.
The number of police calls to Habitat houses.
That's a good one.
And also, we ought to have an accounting over time of the payments made by Habitat houses in taxes,
Absolutely.
utilities.
Yes.
To show that there's a flow of money back into Because that was one of the
Yeah,
Oak
yes,
Hill things,
yeah.
that, you know, they're not.
Right.
So, and to attach that also, the increase in property value, you could actually show, I would think, the amount of wealth that has accrued to each family.
Net worth.
In total.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from the increase
Say-
in
I,
appraised
yeah,
value.
and that's almost
That's a
a
great
built-in
idea.
positive right there, because they do get net worth,
Yeah.
when they make those.
Right.
Yes, which you don't get with a rent receipt.
Right.
You don't get an increase in net wealth with a rent receipt.
Well,
A minute ago, I mean, I want to know, we built 2 houses in Schulenburg. I want to say Schulenburg and the city of Schulenburg has facilitated us in their community to the best of their ability, I think. So I just want the record reflect, I was making some offhand comments that we need to disregard. Schulenburg has been a partner with Habitat for Humanity in 2 buildings. And if they want a 3rd one or facilitate a 3rd one, we'd be more than happy to go. And certainly Flatonia, we would love to be able to.
There's a yell that we do at
I think
A&M
taxes should
when the
work.
referees give us a bad call,
No.
call a harsh laugh.
oh, we'll have to schedule a phone interview. Okay, oh, did you?
Yeah, no, you just said now like that you built the 2 houses in Schulenburg
Yes.
and the others
Are here in LaGrange, so this,
The others.
yes.
And they can go back to Schulenburg and Flatonia as soon as they finish. Oh.
As soon as she's done with us.
We'll go wherever we're needed and wherever we can.
Yeah.
In Fayette County.
In Fayette County.
Well,
As
One more
soon as
point.
we finish everything in LaGrange.
Sometimes we get, and here's what's sad, I think I forwarded this letter on to you, somebody in Giddings, you know, desperate for help, you know, reaching out to Fayette County Habitat. Before the flood, Bastrop didn't have anyone that represented Bastrop County. They were calling us, but since the flood, the Austin chapter has included Bastrop, yeah.
But the
so
Austin,
we're kind of unique.
Austin chapter called to get permission.
Yes,
from
they
us.
did, very respectful, yes, they did.
Right.
But we have a chapter in Colorado County, Columbus, and they're kind of our unofficial sister organization. We're going to work more with them, and so it's a mix. I wish every county had a Habitat chapter, but I realize it's not easy.
We're very fortunate.
Same problem we run
Very
into with the
fortunate.
ramp project.
Yes, same thing you're up against.
Okay, Jennifer.
Okay, one
It's
more
your turn.
final wrap up.
Oh, well, that was our
was
previous
it.
question. Yeah,
Yay.
so we just, again, we want to thank you guys for agreeing to participate in this focus group. A lot of us, it's our first time doing a lot of like in-person research and having interviews and things like this. So it's a great experience for us, and we hope that you all enjoyed the experience as well.
Absolutely, it was great.
And we gave you our professor, Dr. Meyer, her contact information. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to her, or you can look up the emails I sent you guys, because I sent quite a few. So I'm available as well for any questions, and we're coming back to share the report and give a presentation, so I can tell you all when that's going to happen.
Yeah. Can we make that a community event?
Yes.
I think it is.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
hoping we'll do a casino hall like y'all did your last one.
We
Someplace.
like A&M and
Yeah.
LaGrange.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh.
That's what I told them. What are we doing?
There's nothing else.
Something-
We use our resources quite a bit.
Right.
So yeah, so again, thank you, and we'll be in touch, and I'll be happy to give y'all updates if you're interested.
Sure.
Yes,
Yes, absolutely.
Everyone turn in your.
Yes, I have your emails. I even have your phone